Hi, my name is Ray from Water Heaters Now, and today I'm going to show you how to do a cleaning and a descaling of your Navion water heater. If you're watching this video, then you had us install a water heater a couple of years ago. We came and did a free cleaning at 1 year, and now you're ready to do it yourself. It's very simple. There's nothing to be afraid of. So we're going to walk you through the steps, one step at a time. Now, your tank style water heater receives minerals which become sediment and eventually will rot out the bottom of the tank, because it's not cost effective to flush a tank style water heater. However, your tankless heater has a very small heat exchanger where the water goes through a heat plate, the heat transfers into the water and comes out at the temperature that you have the digital dial set at. Now, it's a concentrated heat of 240,000 BTUs, about 5 times as much as a regular tank style water heater. And that may sound like you use a lot of gas, but the good news is it only fires when you have a hot water faucet running in your house. As a result, that concentrated heat exchanger absolutely needs to be cleaned. Listen, it's very important. You have to clean that heat exchanger at least every other year to keep this thing running like brand new for the duration of the home, really. The reason that these heat exchangers fail is because they don't get cleaned, and they fail at about 15-20 years. They can fail in as little as 8 years if they're not cleaned properly. If they're cleaned regularly, annually, there's no reason that this heater can't last 30 to 50 years. So let's get at it. We're going to show you how this is done. A couple of things that you'll need. You'll need a Phillips screwdriver. You'll need a pair of channel locks to undo the filters. Need a pair of clothes washer hoses that you can get anywhere. And the agent that we clean with is just white vinegar. So you'll want 3 gallons of white vinegar. And after your first year, you will have purchased a small sump pump. This is just an Ace pump. It was $69. And what's important is to make sure that you have a hose tap on the top of the pump to make sure that it can connect to one of these clothes washer hoses. Connects right to the top. You don't want to get a sump pump that has a large 1.5 inch thread on it. You want to make sure it's something that it can connect to directly with the hose. Real low volume, maybe a 6 horse or a 5th horse pump, something like that. So if the vinegar goes through and can descale it slowly, you don't want something that is a 1/2 horse and pushes through so fast that it doesn't actually descale the heater. First thing you're going to do is turn the power off at the power button. And then we're going to go further and actually unplug the power cord, so I'll do that. Next, we're going to turn the gas off to the unit. Anytime you have a handle that's running parallel with the pipe, you can think of it like a street. It's clear, you can run through. As soon as you have it running perpendicular to the pipe, that's a stop sign. So whether it's gas or whether it's water, whatever it is, if you have a valve handle in your home, when it's perpendicular to the pipe, it's off. So we turned our gas off, and we turned the water off to the unit on the hot and the cold. So the first thing we're going to do is take the cover off your Navion unit, which is just 4 screws, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. They're gold, and we'll take them off. We'll take the cover off, and where the intake pipe comes into the unit, there's a filter there. There's a bird filter outside on your pipe to keep large creatures from getting into your water heater system, but you can still get small bugs and dirt and dust and different things like that. So there's a filter here to catch that. So we're going to clean that out now. There's a small lip on the top of the water heater, so you don't have to worry about it falling off when you take the screws out. You just pull the cover toward you about 4 inches, and then pick it up off the lip and set it down out of the way. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to take this screw off. Again, the fresh air intake is the left pipe on the top of the water heater, and there's a screw right in the front next to what looks like to be a little white knob. So we'll take that all the way out. And then if you can zoom in on this, you can see that there's a screw right here that's not going to allow this filter to come out. So we'll go to the top and we'll just undo that screw. We don't have to take it all the way out, but we'll just take it out till it's flush. And at that time we can pull this filter directly out. Sure enough, there's some bugs and some dirt and things like that in there. So we'll just go ahead and usually you can just blow through the screen and it cleans right up. It's not something that receives a liquid residue or goo of any kind. It's just keeping bugs and dirt and dust and things like that out. So you don't want to get it wet because that could put an error code on your water heater. If you do get it wet to clean it out, make sure that it's completely dry before you put it back in the unit. We'll put it back in. Put the filter screw back on the front, and then put this top screw off of the fresh air intake housing back in. Now that's the only thing that we have to do on the inside of the heater as far as the cleaning goes. The reason I like Navien is they've really simplified a tankless heater. The cold water comes in, it comes into the heat exchanger, your fresh air comes in, and your gas comes in, and they mix through this turbo. So this actually pulls the gas in, it pulls the air in, mixes it, sends it into the firing chamber. It fires on a steel heat exchanger. As the water comes through that heat exchanger, the heat is transferred to the water, and at the rate of 6 gallons per minute, this will heat water as it goes through the heat exchanger. That's enough to heat 3 showers at once. And then it shoots the exhaust out the side of the house. You have a recirculating pump here, so if you have a large home and you'd like to do a recirculating line to pull a plumbing line from your most remote bathroom back, the 240A model is equipped with a recirculating pump. Well, it's very simple. We'll go ahead and put the cover back on. And then from down below we have your main cold water inlet valve going into the heater. We're going to turn that off. And then we have the hot water outlet. We're going to go ahead and turn that to the off position, which it is right now. So at this point we're ready to drain the water heater and begin doing our service. And you take off the cap on the cold water service port every time we install a Navien. Look, it's really important to have these service valves installed. We do that on every single heater because without that it would be difficult to impossible to clean it properly. So we hook it up to a service valve, and just hand tight is fine. You don't even have to tighten it down with a wrench. And then we'll hook it up to the hot service port. And then with the valves closed to the unit, so the bottom valve is closed so that water can't get in. And on the hot side, the bottom valve is closed so that hot water can't get out. Now we turn these service valves on. And it's just going to release water in, and then we'll release the pressure valve so that it can continue to drain. So right here is the temperature pressure relief valve. And you take this little silver tab and bend it, or not bend it, just pull it so that it's straight out, so that it can pull air into the system and drain it properly. At this time we also have the hot water faucets everywhere in the house turned on. So every lab faucet, kitchen faucet, we turn them all on so the entire hot water system is drained down. Okay, so now that you can see the bottom of the unit, I'll go through the different components that we have. So again, here's the valve kit. And here is a condensate drain. Here's what we would call a trap. Any gunk that gets caught up in the heater goes into the trap and will stay there. And then this is the recirc filter. And then this is the cold water inlet filter. So what we're going to do, we've already drained the entire water heater down. We've opened the hot water faucets everywhere in the house. We open this pressure relief valve, so let's close that now. So you just flip that tab on top of the pressure relief valve. We want that closed. Now what we're going to do is, I've drained everything as best we can. Now we're going to take the filter out with the channel locks, and I bring a smaller tub to catch whatever water's left in the heater, and it should come out very simply. We typically just put them in snug and then another quarter turn with the channel locks. So we take the filter out, and as you can see, there's a little discoloration, but there's not any debris in there. Tells you that water's been coming through clean in the cold water system. So we can go ahead and replace that right away. Tighten it all the way up. And just put your channel lock on it and use a tiny bit of pressure, maybe 1/8 of a turn at most. And then from that point, we'll pull this pin out of the filter, the trap as it were. And this is one of the reasons why we clean our heaters, because there's a tremendous amount of dirt and sediment in the trap, and you can see the water's very dirty. So we're going to go ahead and dump that out. Now you also notice there's an O-ring that came out when we took the trap out. It's very important that that O-ring gets reseated right there before we put it back in. So I'm going to go clean this out just at a laundry tub, and then we'll come back and we'll put the trap back in. So we've cleaned the trap out, and again we're going to just place that O-ring over the trap, seat it on that first ledge. We're going to push it right back in place. Make sure not to pinch the O-ring. It should go in very smoothly, and it should seat flat up against the housing. So when you push it up, if it feels like it's turned one way or the other, look and make sure you're not pinching a little bit of the O-ring, and that it goes up smoothly all the way so that it seats. And then you just put the locking pin right back through the same 2 holes that it came from. And that's all there is to changing out the trap. So we've cleaned out the trap. Now let's take and ensure that the cold water filter is clean as well. So you take a channel locks just to break it loose. Unspin that. There's a rubber O-ring that it seats against. And as I look at the filter, I don't see any sediment. I don't see any particles. It looks like the water's been coming through clean. So there's no reason to have to go clean that. We'll just reinstall it. Tighten it finger tight, and then give it just the tiniest of tug with the channel locks. Do not over tighten any parts in your Navion. This is a plastic filter housing, and it would break if you turned it too hard. Now we've taken the cold water filter out and we've cleaned it. We've pulled the pin and removed the bottom of the trap, and we've cleaned it out. We've cleaned the air filter from where the cold air comes in for the unit to burn. Now what's left is to descale the heater. To do that, we have a pump, just a small sump pump. And the thing that's important is that you have a clothes washer hose inlet on your pump. And we're just going to put that inside the bucket. We'll take the cold side inlet, connect it to the top. Tighten that down. Place your sump pump inside your bucket. We're going to take 2 gallons of white vinegar. We're going to dump that in. So we have the cold water inlet hose attached to the sump pump, which is going to pump water through this hose into the cold water inlet. It's going to go up into the heat exchanger, and it's going to come back down through the hot as if it were normally going to go through the house, except we have it shut off here. So it's going to come out this outlet right back in the bucket. And we're just going to transfer this white vinegar through the system for about a half hour. So it's taking a little time to fill up the system with the vinegar. And as soon as it's through the system, it'll begin coming through this side of the hose. You can see it's coming through discolored. You see in the bucket is vinegar being pumped up through the sump pump, running through the heat exchanger, and then coming out the hot water outlet. And if you notice the color of the water, it doesn't look like clean vinegar anymore. And that's the scaling that we see in the heat exchanger being cleaned off. And if we leave this run for a half hour, and if this is done annually, your heat exchanger will stay a brand new stainless steel look on the inside. So it's the equivalent of changing the oil in your car. If you do it regularly, you're going to be really happy with your product. If you don't do it, it's going to run a while, but there's going to come a day where it's just done running. And it's very similar with your tankless. It really needs the maintenance. So way to go watching this video and making sure that you take care of your equipment. And if you have any issues at all, go ahead and give us a call at 612-876-5553, and there will be a helpful tech on the other end of the phone that will be happy to help you walk through the process. As long as you're here, we're just waiting for the pump to finish. You want to run through 30 to 45 minutes. So after the initial purchase of a pump, Ross, which is like $70,
okay,
at that point your only cost is like $7 a year for 2 gallons of white vinegar to keep this clean.
Just once a year?
Once a year, yep. And some people do it once every other year. But to keep it in brand new condition, you would do it every year. So you pull the,
okay.
why don't you do this? Pull the bottom straight out about 5 inches and then lift it up off the lip.
Okay.
We'll set that aside.
Fairly user-friendly.
Yeah, it is. So then, actually, why don't you take that screw out? This is your cold air intake, and you see that little screen there?
Okay.
That's your filter for, there's a large bird screen outside, Ross, that you could that's there so that larger creatures can't get in. But for smaller insects and dust and different things like that come in, that'll keep it out of your system. So
and try not to drop the screw.
It actually kind of sticks in there. So if you can't pull it out with your finger, you're good there. And then you can see this screw right here, Ross. That's one of the housing screws for the cold air intake. You're gonna have to loosen that up a little bit, otherwise this won't come out.
Okay.
So just loosen that up until you see the screw get buried up into the white cover.
This is the way I learned, by doing.
This serves as your handle, so grab your handle and then put your screwdriver in the screw, loosen it, and then it'll pull right out. There you go. And just loosen the screw as you're pulling.
Okay, for the last threads.
Yep. There you go.
Nice.
And then we've already cleaned it out before you got here, but there was some residue, dirt and miscellaneous things there. And that's all it's for, is just to keep the fresh air coming in clean, basically like an air filter in your car.
So one filter here.
Correct.
And 2 down here.
Here's your cold air, or your cold water inlet filter. You want to say that? It's your cold water inlet filter.
Cold water inlet filter.
And then this is your dirt trap.
Okay.
So any dirt that's in the unit just settles when the unit is at rest, and it'll stay in that trap as the water's flowing through. So it keeps the dirt out of your system.
All right.
I'll pull this down for you. It's a little easier to put that in when you can see what you're doing. And you can see it kind of slides into a groove on the top. There you go. Oh, you're really good.
I'm going to come back a little bit, over a little bit. Like that?
Yep. We'd hire him. Are you looking for a part-time gig, Ross?
I'm unemployed next week, so.
Careful what you ask for. Okay, so any questions about what's going on in here?
No? So I'm just kind of curious. Comes up through here and
So your
just the-
cold water comes up through here. You can see it back there. And
Okay.
there's a series of sensors for different things that are attached to the water. For example, there's a moisture sensor. So if there's moisture in the box indicating a leak anywhere, it would shut the system down and you wouldn't have hot water. You'd come down here and there would be a code reading moisture in the box.
Okay.
And then you'd open it. Now the great thing is if there ever is a problem, all the water piping in here can get taken apart with these chrome clips. You pull the clip, you pull the part out, there's an O-ring there. They could not have made it more simple design
That's the way I like it.
and user friendly. When they taught us at the training center how all the parts work, basically we get to a point where we can tear this entire unit down piece by piece and put it back together so it works in about 40 minutes.
Wow. Where's the heating core in here?
This is your heat exchanger here.
Okay.
So your water comes in and there's a large steel plate that the fire hits and it heats up the steel plate, and it's like a sandwich, two steel plates that get fired, and as the water passes through, the heat transfers into the water so that when it comes out very quickly, about 6 gallons a minute quickly.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's worked great for the whole time. So
What have you had this 2 years now?
14 months. We put it
14
in
months,
November.
just a little over a year.
January, February. Yeah, 14, 15.
And we always recommend that we should clean them after year one. We're a couple months late on this one, but as you can see, there was a little dirt in there.
Yeah.
Now, if we come on year one and it's clean as a whistle vinegar, then you got extra specially clean water, and it probably only needs every other year. But based on what we're looking at here, Ross, I do this every year.
Okay. Seems.
A little hook that grabs onto that ledge, and then just slide it one way or the other so that your control board is centered.
There we go. That made a big difference.
There you go.
And
And if
just
that's
saved me
on
a
and
half
that's
an
on.
hour.
There's your screws.
All right.
I'm gonna bring this guy with all the time. So as Ross is putting the lid back on, I just want to share a couple of thoughts that were foundational with water heaters now. One of our desires is to educate our customers so that they can get the best life out of their equipment possible. We're not trying to come back in 7 or 8 years and install another water heater because they didn't know how to service the one that we installed in the first place. So our vision is that on a Tankless, we'll come and do the first cleaning for free, and we want to do that while the homeowner, like Ross, is present and get his hands on the equipment and learn some things about it. And then we'll have a sticker on the side of the water heater which has the video link for this video, which will walk you through step by step. Also have a phone number if you have further questions. But what we want to do is train the homeowner how to do their own service, because if you're putting a Tankless in, you're doing it because you save energy, you save money every year, and you don't want to be putting a water heater in every 10 or 15 years. If you keep this clean, it's going to be a lifetime water heater for the home. Every part is easily replaceable if something wears out. So rather than paying a contractor to come do the service every year, we want to coach the homeowner how to do it to save those funds. All right, Ross, what we're going to do now is this has been running for 40 minutes. We had a timer set on it, and that's a good average time is 40 minutes. Why don't you go ahead and unplug the pump. And now what we're going to do is we're going to purge the vinegar out of the system. And the way we're going to do that is to turn this valve off, the service port valve. So the upper blue and red valve are called service port valves, and the lower blue and red valves are the main shutoffs for the hot and cold side. So go ahead and shut the cold service valve off. Okay, then we'll take this hose off. We're all done with that now. And now you could go ahead and open the, and then we'll put this cap back on, which just keeps any drips. The valve will keep water from coming there. The cap just keeps drips out.
Okay.
So go ahead and turn the cold water valve live to the unit. And that'll begin purging out. So as you can see, we're pushing vinegar and water out now through the house pressure. Okay, and I'm just going to remove the pump because we're done with that.
Put her down.
Yep, after it's all drained out as best you can just set that to the side, Ross. So we're going to shut this off before the bucket's totally full.
Yep.
And then we'll shut this side off also. So then we won't have water spilling on the floor while we dump this bucket.
Okay.
We can just loop this up here for a short while. And then we're going to take this bucket of vinegar, go dump it in a laundry tub, and then we'll flush through one more time. So,
Okay.
So Ross, this is looking pretty clean. So we'll go ahead and run a good solid 4 gallons through just to get any vinegar taste or smell out of the way. And all the hot water faucets in the house are currently on so that it could drain. So now what we'll do is when we turn it on, we'll just let it run out of every faucet for a little while. So this looks clean.
Yep.
Looks good to go. So I think we have the vinegar all purged out.
I can take it.
Okay. Let me just dump this hose out. Okay. Okay, so Ross, we have both service ports off now.
Yep.
The cold port is off, the hot port is off. The heater is full of cold water right now. So the only thing we have left to do is to turn hot on to the rest of the house. Why don't you go ahead and flip that? Okay, so now hot water is pushing through the system. Go ahead and plug it back in. And turn your gas valve back on.
Is that important?
You won't get very warm water without it.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and hit your power button. There you go. And you had it set for 130 before, and it remembered that. So I don't know if in the video you can hear this booting up or not, but it's a very quiet unit. Our heater's fired up. We have hot water coming through. And you'll notice when we turned the power on, Ross, it took 10 to 12 seconds before we had hot water coming through the pipe. The reason for that is, and you know this because that's one of the reasons you went away from a 75-gallon heater. You didn't like paying the bill to keep 75 gallons hot 24 hours a day all year round.
Right.
So now, when you turn a hot water faucet on, water comes through the heater, it hits a sensor, tells it I need heat, turns the gas valve and the inducer on. They mix the air and gas, pump it into the firebox. The firebox heats up the steel plates, and then the water that passes through can begin getting heated. That whole process takes about 10 seconds each time you turn a hot water faucet on. So it's a small price to pay. It does take a little bit longer to get hot water to your faucet, but the trade-off is about $150 a year in natural gas that you're saving running this over a large tank unit that has 75 gallons hot all the time. And this will outperform a 75-gallon heater. You could have 3 showers running at one time 24 hours a day if you wanted to, and it would keep up.
We never ran out of hot water.
So you've had this in 14 months and you've yet to want for more hot water. What are the amounts of bathrooms you have in this house?
3 bathrooms and a gas stove, and we heat with gas, and we've never taxed it where it couldn't keep up.